I 100% agree that the United States owes the black community reparations, and this is why. It's not about white people owing black people. It's not about white people being punished for the sins of our ancestors. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's about white people standing in solidarity with a community that has suffered grave, egregious injustices at the hands of the United States government. But first, we must decenter ourselves in this conversation, alienate ourselves from our privilege, and hold the United States institutions and systems accountable for the wrongs that they never rectified. From slavery to black codes, to convict leasing, to Jim Crow segregation, to anti-black housing policies, to mass incarceration, we have never rectified our wrongs as a country. If you look at our criminal justice system, 1 in 3 black males carry convicted felon label. That is a real stat. Is it because they're inherently evil, or they just need more personal accountability, or is there something larger at play? All the data shows, by every statistical measure, the black community has been disproportionately impacted by every institution or system in the United States, from education to healthcare to criminal justice system to banking to housing, which we still have de jure segregation in effect today. And when it comes to housing, neither parties are absolved from this because both parties were responsible for the de jure segregation that we see today. The New Deal by Franklin Roosevelt didn't invent the segregationist practice of housing, but it did institutionalize it. Restricting access to capital for black families while enriching white families, the big reason why we see the generational wealth gap we see today. And remember, public housing wasn't initially for poor people, it was for working class white families. But because of laws and policies implemented by the United States government, it reinforced segregation because public housing was to reflect the racial composition of the existing neighborhood. We had redlining and gentrification of neighborhoods, the residual effects of all these policies that we still see today. Reparations is about rebuilding and investing in the black community. Our government was held accountable to some extent for the grave injustices that we committed, the atrocities that we committed against Native Americans. We were also held accountable for the Japanese internment camps. But the United States government never made good on its 40 acres and a mule to the black community. Everybody else got paid. The United States was held accountable for these injustices. I'm a convicted felon. I had to pay a debt to society, to the United States government, to the state of Florida for the crimes that I committed. I was held accountable. To this day, my past is still being used against me. In fact, if I were to go before a judge today, the first thing he would do is bring up my past and say it's probably a pretty good indicator of what my future will be. But we don't keep that same energy for our government. We don't hold them to the same level of accountability and to the same level of scrutiny. So if you're thinking to yourself, I don't know anybody, you're absolutely right. But our government does. And as citizens of the United States who uphold the Constitution, it is our duty, it is our responsibility to hold our government accountable. As taxpayers, as citizens of the United States, we all pay, not just white people. Anytime there's an injustice in the United States by a government agency, whether it's the police department, sheriff's department, any government agency, the taxpayers are always the ones that foot the bill. Why? Because in America, we believe in justice, or at least we say we do. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, I'm sure we can all agree that our government is corrupt. Stop allowing them to make us turn on each other. What better way to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters than to advocate to make right what has been wrong and never been rectified? People ask me all the time, what are my solutions to the problems that I speak on? Well, I can assure you that this would be a step in the right direction. This is the pathway forward. Reparations in America today.